if you have a partner like that, then they are controlling you and they're trying to put you in a cage and they are making you the source of their happiness, which is never healthy.
Hey guys, how are we doing? It's Matt Haycox here, and today I am joined by a guest who definitely has the most exciting name of anyone on the podcast before. I've got with me Sami Wunder, who is the modern Divas love coach. What an introduction. Now, Sami is an internationally recognized dating and relationship expert, and she specializes in working with high-achieving women leaders and entrepreneurs to attract their dream man and create a deeply intimate and deeply connected relationship. In the past 4 years, she's worked with over 170 clients, including a Hollywood celebrity, UK TV stars, CEOs, leading entrepreneurs, and influencers. She's been hailed as the Get the Ring coach by the BBC, and she has over 85,000 followers on social media and many more that she loves to share her podcast with. So welcome, Sami. Thanks a lot for being here.
Thanks for bringing me here, Matt.
No problem. Listen, obviously, I've given an introduction to yourself, but I mean, maybe if you could flesh that out a little bit more, just I guess tell us how you ended up in this line of work. And I mean, we're going to talk obviously today about relationships and I guess what to expect when you're dating an entrepreneur and ways that people can build deeper bonds. But you're also a businesswoman yourself, so I guess I'd like to understand a little bit about that story also. So over to you and tell us how we got to where we are today.
Okay, sure. So I think part one of the story that brought me to being a love and relationship expert is my own personal experience. So I was always the smart, well-educated woman and doing great in my career. So I was working for an international development organization as a consultant, as an economist. And even with all my brains and being reasonably good looking, smart, sensitive, I had a really hard time connecting with men. And so that piece of the puzzle was really foreign to me. And they say it always takes one really big heartbreak or pain in your life to bring the biggest transformation in your life as well. And so for me, it was this one man where I thought he's the one. And then 2 months intensely into the dating, he told me, "You're a great gal, Sami. You have so much to offer to the world, but I don't feel it for you." And so for me, that was a time in my life where I said, okay, there is something here that I don't understand, that I need to understand, because something is clearly not working. And I think I put on my good girl student glasses. And just like I solve any other problem in my life, when I have a challenge, when I have an issue, which is I use my empowered masculine energy to find a solution, that's what I did. I started to study relationships. And when you browse through the internet today, there's so much superficial crap floating around, say this to a guy and hook a man this way. But if you really get interested in understanding why your love life or your relationships don't really work out, then I think our relationships, our romantic relationships, are the biggest mirror to what's going on inside of us. They're the biggest mirror to where we need to heal our own hearts before we can connect with anybody, man or woman, in a romantic way. And so for me, what followed was a huge journey of personal transformation. I quickly started to understand that before I could expect a man to value me, I had to value myself, and not just value myself in terms of the money I was making or the job and the career I had, but to value my heart and to value my essence as a woman, and to be proud of what I was bringing to the table just as a woman and nothing else. I started to attract and meet really high quality men. I met and married my husband within 9 months. I'm happily married now over 7 years. And I think that was the journey on the personal side. And then by a stroke of providence, my husband ended up in a really good job with the European Space Agency. And so we had to shift to Paris to live in Paris. And suddenly I found myself not being able to speak the local language and not being able to work anymore in my job at Geneva, where I was initially working with an international development organization. And so that brought up this circumstance where I was like, okay, what do I do with my life? I have a master's degree. I'm a gold medalist trained economist. Um, do I just sit at home and wait for my husband to come back? I mean, no judgment if you do decide to do that as a choice, but for me, it wasn't something acceptable. And so I think one piece started to build upon the other. I realized that I had all these friends, university educated, PhDs, really gorgeous, smart women who were still struggling in love and who had started to turn to me for advice, even though it was not formal. It was just friends, just saying, hey, what do you think I should do? And do you think he's interested? And why doesn't it ever work out? And then I started to see that, hey, what if I started to do this professionally? What if I know I'm giving good advice. I know I've been able to crack the code for myself. And what if I started to do this professionally? So I think that's where everything came together. It was a brave step because I come from a traditional Indian family of professors, and my parents were hoping to see me in the European Central Bank one day. And it was a big shock that I was going to become a love coach. Nobody even knew what that meant.
What's that movie with the Indian guys? Is it called The Guru?
The Guru?
You don't know it? I think it's called The Guru with Sami Mystery or Jimmy Mystery or whatever he's called, and he's an Indian guy, and he's like a comedy movie about him being a love guru.
Okay, I haven't seen that one, but
I'm going to email you the details when we finish.
My parents did not understand what a love coach is and who a love coach is. And I think I just had to have a lot of belief in myself. Even today, I think there's a lot of shame around, women who come to me. A lot of the times they want it to be very confidential and they don't want anyone to know that they actually are taking support in this aspect of their lives. And I find it sad because I believe that, it's like our romantic relationships, it's a skill you can learn how to be in a healthy relationship, how to self-regulate in a healthy relationship. And just like you go to a driving school to learn driving, you go to an investor school, a finance school to understand money and numbers and finance, it's something very similar. It's about learning the skills to healthy love. And many of us are not born that way. Many of us are not born with healthy role models. We want to find those healthy role models in our parents, but often we don't. We see fighting, arguments, our dads treating our moms badly, our unhappy mothers, unhappy fathers. I mean, it's not just women who are unhappy in love. Sometimes men are deeply dissatisfied and unhappy and don't feel respected and cherished in their relationships. So I think a lot of us are just not born with that good, healthy springboard. And there's nothing wrong with us accessing that formally and trying to learn.
And tell me, do you work with people who aren't in a relationship, who are looking to get in one? Then do they kind of stop working with you, or are you almost someone who you kind of work with for life? From before, during, and after that. That you're always there as a support, a mentor, or whatever you want to call it.
I'd say both. So I have so many of my clients on my wall here. So some of my clients, I help them go from single to happily married. And sometimes they come back because they need support navigating intimacy in the marriage or in the relationship. So we help both sets of women.
And tell me, how does because you've built a 7-figure business out of this? How does your business model work in terms of is it like paid by the hour coaching, or what's your advice to experts in your industry or similar in terms of how they can get maximum monetization out of this?
Okay, so I think when we talk about maximum monetization, I think it's important to understand it comes from getting results. Like if you are focused on helping people and if you're really focused on doing your craft well, you are bound to succeed. And And I think when I started back in 2016, that was important to me, that even if I got 2 clients, like, can I really help them? Because when I really help them, then they go talk about me to their friends, and then they bring in more people. So that's how it started for me. I don't think it's been one consistent model. I mean, in the first year, we hit 6 figures. In the second year, we hit multiple 6 figures. And in the third year, we hit 7 figures. And now we're going beyond 7 figures. So I think the model had to rapidly evolve. So in the beginning, it was more one-on-one coaching, a few online programs, and then the load was just too much. So in the second year, we started giving group coaching programs. I had to train coaches in my methods, in my knowledge, so that they could support me in the group coaching programs. And then, of course, I think a big role was being picked up by the press. So a big role in my success was also being recognized, for example, by the BBC or the Daily Mail calling me the Get the Ring coach. And that brought like a huge, complete, I would say, life change within a few weeks of those things coming out. And then I had to up my prices accordingly, because I just couldn't take the load of the number of requests that were coming in at that point. And so it was getting really clear over time that, we sell. So we like to support everybody, but I'm just one person, so I can't be talking to everybody. So it started with lots of personal support, moving to online coaching programs, moving to group coaching programs. And right now I run masterminds. I work intimately with 5-10 women in a group. Then I have bigger group coaching programs where I work up to 100 people with my coaches in the group. And then I have my online programs, which anybody can buy. And some of them are dirt cheap, and some of them are, $2,000, $3,000 plus. So there's like a huge range of menu options that people can select from.
Not dirt cheap, fantastic value.
Yeah, so fantastic value at that price, right? Because a lot of the times people don't know you and they just want to test something and before they invest more. So I don't think it's ever about the money. It's about the trust, and it's about, does this really work, and does this really?
I mean, it's always about the results. Within reason. I guess if you can guarantee results, you can charge what you want, can't you? I mean, yes, okay, not everybody can afford what you may charge, but people's hesitation is wanting to know whether or not things work, and I guess that also shows. I mean, you can't, for me, overestimate the value of being in the national press, of being nationally recognised or regarded in your industry, and obviously you've managed to tick a lot of boxes there.
Yes, absolutely.
So tell me, going back to relationships, and I know I want to talk specifically, on entrepreneurial, type relationships. But just before we do that, I mean, as a general question or general comment, when do you think relationships? When's it time to call it a day? And I kind of jest about this a little, but I talk to my friends a lot, and I'm a very simple guy, and I take the view that I disagree with the comment that relationships need to be worked at. Because for me, I think if you're going to have a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, whatever you want to call it, for me, you're supposed to work. You're supposed to bring joy to each other and support and happiness. And if I spend all day working in my office, I don't want to come home and have to work on my relationship. I want to provide you super happiness. I want you to provide me super happiness. And if we don't, then we just don't. And like I say, all my friends will laugh and maybe say I'm being unrealistic or oversimplistic. But I take the view that if you can't make me happy, I'd rather just be single. I've got enough shit to listen to all day without having to come home and listen to someone moan at me or tell me I can't go to the pub or tell me I can't go and play poker or whatever it may be. And again, people will tell me that I'm selfish and unrealistic. And I would argue that, well, I'm not selfish because I'm quite clear about what I want. I'll tell you, I want to go and play poker, or I want to go and do whatever. If that doesn't work for you, then maybe we don't work. Then we don't work together. I mean, what are your general comments? Am I a Neanderthal, or do you agree with me?
I think I agree with you to a very large extent, right? So I think it's a belief. I think our belief systems are so instrumental in defining the kind of relationships we're going to be attracting and accepting in our lives, and just the fundamental belief that relationships are hard work actually manifests more hard work in the relationship. So I think moving with the idea that it should feel easy, it should feel fun, it should enhance me and bring value to my life. I think for successful men and women, we've got a pretty good life by ourselves. Like, once you become a 7-figure, 8-figure entrepreneur, you have money, you have status, you have your cars, you have your house. You don't need a spouse. You don't need a spouse for anything, right? What you really need, or you don't need a spouse to bring you those things. What you really want in a person that is with you is joy, laughter, companionship, connection, acceptance, right? Now, having said that, I think, will it always be hunky-dory? No.
Sure.
Right. So I think there's a very fine line between being in a relationship where there is work every day and being in a relationship where there's work once in a while that helps you connect at a much deeper level. So to give you an example, one of my clients, she's a banker in Manhattan, and she started seeing this guy who's a professor at Columbia, and he was they were seeing each other for 4 months. Everything was going perfect. And then one day she said, I feel a bit disappointed that, there was nothing for our 6-month anniversary. So they've been seeing each other for 6 months. And then the guy said, you know what, like, I have so much to handle. I can't handle your disappointed feelings, right? Now, what do I think about the situation? I think that when we are in a relationship, we've got to engage with each other, and we've got to be willing to engage with each other. If this woman was bringing things like this up every second day, I'd say she's a nuisance, and I'd say she really needs to work on herself, right? And she really needs to work on her insecurities. She really needs to work on her expectations. But at the same time, if I hear a comment like this after 6 months of being together, and I see that the man is not even willing to engage with one negative emotion that I have, I wouldn't want to be with such a man, right? Because I don't think I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm only expected to be perfect, only expected to be happy, only expected to, never come in your way. So I think I can tell you about my marriage with my husband. I think we really laugh a lot. We really connect a lot. We're really easy with each other. He gets to play poker. He gets to go golfing. He gets to do his nothing box. He gets to, play his video games. And sometimes he just needs that. And in the beginning of the marriage, when I was still learning to be a wife, it took a little bit of talking, a little bit of, argument to get to a point where you really start to understand, these are my man's needs, just like I have needs to, go with my girls and go do my shopping and go, buy my lipstick colors or whatever. I have my needs as a woman, and he has his needs as a man. And in a healthy relationship, there will be space to do those things, because a marriage or a relationship should never become a cage or a box. And I think what happens is that a lot of the times, what we call healthy relationships are subconsciously unhealthy relationships. So what you're giving me an example of, that, I don't want to be told never to play poker or never to go out or never to go have a beer with my boys. And I think if you have a partner like that, then they are controlling you, and they're trying to put you in a cage, and they are making you the source of their happiness, which is never healthy. Right? Which is never healthy. If you just turn the tables, if you started telling her she shouldn't go to her night out with the girls, or she shouldn't dress this way, or she shouldn't be this way, then you'd be called controlling too, right? So I think a lot of the times people subconsciously control each other, and then they call it being in, like, you've got to work on the relationship. And I think that's where relationship skills really matter, really count, that your relationship has space for two people to be individuals inside of the relationship. And then when they come together, it's great. And then they can also separate and, lead their lives within the relationship, right? And I think kids also are a different ball game, but we don't have to go there. But, I have, my son is there, and I'm expecting my second baby now. So yeah, it also changes the dynamics a lot. I expect Chris to also step up much more. And yeah, it is a lot of juggling, but I would never call it working on the relationship. It feels very heavy. It feels very suffocating to think that I have to work on the relationship. I think I have to work on myself sometimes. That's fair. But no, not working on the relationship.
Well, let's talk specifically entrepreneurial relationships.
Mhm.
Whether that is the guy is the entrepreneur, or the girl. I mean, tell me. I mean, where does the dynamic shift? Compared to, let's say, a normal relationship in insofar as there's two people who have reasonably traditional jobs or lifestyles or whatever. I mean, where does the dynamic shift? What do people need to expect if they're going to be the partner of of an entrepreneur, of a busy business person with ambition, and how should both people react or
Oh my
behave?
God. I can again think about my own marriage and how, like, when the business started to get really successful, how that landed on my marriage. So I can say that it's really important to understand that if you have a 9 to 5 traditional spouse with that traditional job, he or she's never going to be able to understand at first without you having to explain it to them, just how much adventure, adrenaline, what goes on inside the life and the mind of an entrepreneur, right? Like, sometimes people don't understand that if I picked up the phone and I just answered one message, I'd make 30 grand, just straight off. Somebody would click a link and sign up to work with me, right? So my husband at the start would always go like, why do you have to pick up the phone? Like, it's private time. It's time for us. And I would say, just one email, right? Just one email. And so it took some time for us to understand that, for him to trust that if I'm picking up the phone, it is important. And for me to discipline myself to not pick up the phone if it's not important. So we had to get to this point because it was not it wasn't so obvious at the start. Like, I would pick up the phone all the time. He would get irritated all the time. And so I think that's the first thing people want to understand, that you cannot expect your 9 to 5 spouse to just understand what goes on in your business and how important that one email can be, or how important that one comment can be. Or maybe you've got like a really crazy troll on your ads and you want to delete those hurtful comments, and that's really important to you for your emotional stability in that moment. So not expecting them to understand, but actually leading with explaining. Say, honey, this is how it works. So I had to sit with my husband and say, honey, look at this person. They could sign up if I just sent them a reply with a link of a 30K, contract, and they would sign up and they would do it now. And so he started to understand this. So I think that's the first thing. Second thing is, if you're an online entrepreneur, you do have a relationship with your devices in your phone. Like, if your spouse doesn't like that, it's going to be hard, because most probably you will be checking your phone and you will be opening your laptop often enough. And so again, I think that's about discipline, boundaries, clearer boundaries for yourself, for your spouse, that this is time. Like, I just shut down the computer at 7 latest in the evening, and then I check my phone once more at 8 o'clock, before going to bed, and then I must keep it away, because otherwise I've also realized that it's just so much stimulation for my brain. Like, I can't sleep. Like, I'm sometimes so excited all the time, all through the day, that it's not good for my sleep. So there's a point in also just not just doing this for your partner, but also because it's healthy to like be able to, disconnect from your
Sure.
devices. And I think it's important to also understand, when you're in a relationship with with an entrepreneurial spouse, that sometimes it's not easy. Like, we go through an emotional roller coaster at times. And the kind of safety, for example, Chris has with his job, like, just a certain amount of money comes every month, easily. You can expect it. Sometimes the workload is high, sometimes it's not so high. It's not the kind of safety and security I have. In fact, I like it because for me, being an entrepreneur represents so much possibility. Like, there's just so much I could do, and it's so exciting. And sometimes it's hard for him to understand that, because we have enough. We have more than enough. We don't need money. We don't need to be working day and night for the money. So I think just explaining to them, why your purpose is important, why this is important to you, so that they don't get jealous of your business. Like, your spouse should never be jealous of your business or jealous that your business gets more time and attention than them. So in that sense, I would say, when you do spend time together, like, make sure it's quality time. Like, make sure you switch off your phone, make sure you really spend time to connect with them. Keep your promises as much as you can, because as entrepreneurs, things just come up, right? Things change fast. It's not very predictable how tomorrow will look.
We pivot. We pivot. That's a fantastic word to excuse anything.
Yeah, and we do it all the time. Like, no day is predictable. In the morning, I wouldn't have a PR interview, but in the evening, I would. And it would surprise my husband because he said, "But your calendar was free this morning." And I'm like, "Yeah, the BBC just wrote me, like, it's just happening," right? So I think just understanding that it's quite an unpredictable terrain, and being able to define between the couple as much predictability as possible. And so when you make those promises, try to keep them. I think they are the biggest marker of love and affection in a relationship, that when you say you do something, do your best to keep the promise.
Sure. Well, look, I mean, you've had some really interesting things to say there, Sami. And I guess what immediately sprung to mind to me was I guess how simple a lot of it is, and how I guess how transferable those mindsets are across, I guess, intimate relationships, platonic relationships, and just how to behave with life in general. So, but very interesting chat, and a lot to learn in a short space of time. I mean, for everybody watching and listening who wants to hear more, which I'm sure will be many people, where can we find you? Where are you on social? Where's your website? Give yourself a little shout out.
Absolutely. So that's the strange name right there, Sami Wunder.
The best name. I want to change my name now.
Yeah. So my husband is German, and Wunder is the German word for wonder. So we went with it, and it's done pretty well. So we stuck with it. So
has he changed his name as well? Chris Wunder. Huh?
No, he's not. So Sami Wunder, you can find me at samiwunder.com. You can Google just my name, and you'll find me on Google. And I also run a really active Facebook private community for women. So it's called Wunder Divas, where we're all about, loving our hearts, loving our first, having, solid boundaries, and just really standing up with a lot of clarity, just as you said, Max, just as you said before, just knowing who we are and showing up with that clarity in our relationships. So just like the kind of guy you are, where you say, I know what I want, and I'm able to be very, forthright about it. I'm able to say what I want. I think that's what we train our women to do, to know what they want and to be able to show up with that kind of clarity and that kind of forthrightness in dating and in their relationships. So that's where they can find me. Yeah, Wunder Divas.
Well, thank you very much again, Sami, and I hope to see you again in the future sometime.
Thanks, Matt. I'd love to be.
Bye-bye. Bye.